Have you ever met someone who made you feel seen, completely, instantly, as if you'd finally found the missing piece? It starts like a spark that catches fire faster than you can breathe. They look at you as if the universe just handed them a miracle. Their attention feels endless, their energy magnetic. Every text arrives like a pulse. Every call stretches deep into the night. Voices growing softer as the world sleeps. Laughter spills into quiet spaces. You tell them things you've never told anyone, and somehow they already seem to know. It feels like destiny, like every wrong turn in your life was leading you here, to this person who finally understands. They say the right words at the right moments. So perfectly, it feels written by fate. You start to wonder how someone could see so deeply into you, how they could love you so fast, so completely. It's overwhelming, but in the most beautiful way. You start checking your phone without realizing it, waiting for their next message, their next rush of warmth. Even silence starts to ache, as if the world dims whenever they're not there. Days blur together, long conversations, sudden plans, promises whispered before sunrise. They tell you you're different. They say they've never felt this way before, and you want to believe them, because part of you already does. It feels pure. It feels impossible. It feels like love written in lightning. But then, something shifts. What once felt like devotion begins to feel like pressure. The texts come faster, the calls longer. The questions start sounding like tests. The same attention that made you feel chosen now feels like surveillance. You begin to notice the patterns, how their compliments sound recycled, how their apologies feel rehearsed, how their warmth flickers when you need space. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You remember the nights they made you laugh until you cried, the mornings you woke to messages that said, "I can't stop thinking about you." But somewhere inside, something tightens. The light that once felt safe now blinds you. Their love starts to feel like a performance, one you didn't know you'd been cast in. You still remember the magic, the first rush, the way they made you believe you were finally enough. But now that same intensity feels suffocating, as if the very thing that once lifted you up is now pulling you under. You start to question what's real, their words, their affection, even your own feelings. How can something that feels so right, so pure, begin to feel like a trap? Love bombing works because it feels like love, because it feels like everything we've ever wanted. The human brain doesn't analyze when it's adored. It surrenders. When someone floods you with attention, "You're perfect. You're the one. I've never felt this before." Your mind begins to release its own chemical chorus. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. The same messengers that whisper, "You're safe. You're cherished. You belong." It's not magic. It's biology. But in that rush, logic fades. Manipulators, whether they realize it or not, learn to play that rhythm. They mirror your soul until you start depending on that reflection to feel whole. Every good morning becomes proof you matter. Every "I miss you" feels eternal. And before you know it, you've built your peace around their validation. It starts fast, too fast. Flowers on the third day, confessions under the stars, a pedestal so high it blinds you to the imbalance beneath. Then comes the shift. Subtle, quiet, almost invisible. A missed text, a colder tone, a sigh that sounds like disappointment. Suddenly, you are the one chasing, the one apologizing, the one shrinking to fit the story. Each withdrawal pulls you deeper. Each breadcrumb of affection keeps you hooked. You overthink. You overgive. You forget where you end and they begin. And when they finally return with that late-night miss you, you breathe again, not realizing it's just another loop. But not every love bomber is a villain. Some are just broken people, terrified of being left, loving too hard, too fast, mistaking possession for safety. Their fear becomes control, their affection, obsession. But intent doesn't erase impact, because even when born from insecurity, the result is the same. Dependency, disguised as romance. Love bombing isn't about love. It's about power. It's the illusion of closeness, used to bind you in emotional debt. It promises forever. But what it really delivers is control. Devotion that starts with fireworks and ends with ashes. It always begins like fireworks, dazzling, blinding, impossible to look away from. You stand beneath it, spellbound, as light fills the sky and color paints your heart. But fireworks were never meant to last. They fade into smoke just as quickly as they appear, leaving behind the echo of something that once felt infinite. That's what love bombing feels like. A storm of emotion so intoxicating that you mistake the explosion for connection, the chaos for depth. At first, it's euphoric. Every message, every call, every "I can't stop thinking about you" feels like a hit of something divine. You start living for it, that rush, that high, that feeling of being seen so vividly it almost hurts. It's like drinking sunlight, like breathing air for the first time. But soon, the light burns too bright. The candle that once warmed you now flickers too fast, melting down before you can even realize it's gone. What was once an embrace starts to feel like a blaze you can't control. And when it ends, when the messages slow, when the laughter fades, it feels like withdrawal. You scroll through old texts just to feel that spark again. You replay memories like songs you can't stop listening to, even when they hurt. You tell yourself, maybe it'll come back. Maybe you said something wrong. Maybe love always feels this unstable. You crave what destroyed you, because for a moment, it made you feel alive. That's the cruel beauty of it. How easily the mind confuses intensity for intimacy. The constant highs, the emotional roller coaster, the unpredictable affection. They all start to feel like the proof that it must be real. Calm starts to feel boring. Stability feels empty. You begin to associate love with chaos, as if peace means indifference. And so, even when it hurts, you stay. Because leaving feels like losing the one thing that made you feel special. But beneath the storm lies something quieter. A truth we often don't want to see. Love bombing doesn't only expose the manipulator's patterns, it reflects our own hunger to be chosen. We all want to feel like we're the exception, the miracle that makes someone change. We crave the story where we're seen not just for who we are, but for everything we could be. And when someone mirrors that back, we fall, not just for them, but for the version of ourselves they let us see. That's why it hurts so deeply when it collapses. Because what dies isn't only the relationship, it's the fantasy. The fantasy that maybe, this time, we were finally enough to be loved without condition, without waiting, without pain. Maybe it wasn't love that made it feel magical. Maybe it was the fantasy of finally being enough. Healing begins quietly. There's no grand revelation, no cinematic moment where everything suddenly makes sense. It's more like waking up slowly after a long dream, blurry at first, then clearer with every breath. One day, you stop reaching for your phone. You stop waiting for messages that never come. You stop replaying what-ifs and start noticing what is. The world feels still, almost too still at first. But in that stillness, something begins to rebuild. You start to see that real love doesn't need to rush. It doesn't drown you in declarations or demand to be believed. It moves gently, like sunlight through curtains, like a hand that holds without tightening its grip. It's steady. It's calm. It's enough. The thrill of chaos starts to fade, replaced by a quiet strength you didn't know you had. The strength to choose peace over drama, truth over illusion, presence over promises. You learn to trust slow love, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself every second, the kind that shows up, not shows off. You begin to understand that attention isn't affection, that consistency is the real form of passion. You stop chasing fireworks and start tending to fire, the kind that keeps you warm without burning you down. Somewhere along the way, you realize not everyone who calls it love knows what love means. Some people mistake intensity for care, control for connection. And maybe the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to convince them otherwise. Let them go. Let their chaos return to silence. Indifference isn't bitterness. It's freedom. It's the moment you stop giving a fuck about those who confuse manipulation with love, because you finally see that peace is louder than passion. And in that peace, you rediscover yourself, the version that doesn't need constant validation to feel real. You find beauty in ordinary moments, the quiet of a morning coffee, the softness of a steady gaze, the safety of someone who listens instead of performing affection. It's not cinematic in the way you imagined, but it's real, and it lasts. You stop searching for someone to make you feel whole, because you realize you already are. The emptiness you tried to fill with someone else's intensity starts to dissolve. You start loving without losing yourself, caring without clinging, feeling without falling apart. You don't need to be adored to feel alive. You just need to be free. If this spoke to something inside you, that quiet voice that's been waiting to heal, stay with us. Subscribe to BeyondPersonaLab, where we uncover the hidden psychology of love, identity, and awakening. Because sometimes, understanding the darkness is how we finally learn to find the light.